Hey, here we go. It is the DC Sports Huddle, sponsored by MGM National Harbor. It's time to change the game at BetMGM Sports. And yes, along with Rob Woodfork, George Wallace, Dave Preston, it's our weekly get-together. Again, we're not going to solve anything. Hopefully have some fun and also leave you some questions, and you might want to email us because you're mad at whatever we say. That's the way life works now in the United States. Hey, Maryland does have a new basketball coach. There was some guy named George Wallace last week. Who'd you say? It was going to be Mike Bray. We were supposed to mark that down, right?
I did say that. Yeah. And
what happened? You didn't negotiate well enough?
It's not Mike Bray, but from apparently he likes his team and doesn't want to really coach in the Big Ten and is going to stay at Notre Dame because It's not him. So that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll see myself out.
It would have made a good press conference, the math guy, et cetera, et cetera. But while you're and again, we made the distinction last week. You're a Maryland grad, not a booster. Boosters contribute money. And I've been out with you before. You don't contribute money. So you're a Maryland grad. Kevin Willard is the new coach from Seton Hall. Your thoughts?
I like it. Look, I mean, it's the guy can coach. We've seen that. A lot of people worry that maybe it was, Mark Turgeon 2.0, just because kind of a methodical style of basketball, play in the Big East. But look, he can coach, and it's tougher to recruit at Seton Hall than it is here, you would hope. So I liked what I heard, what he said yesterday. You want to bring that swagger back. I think he did a great job of recognizing the past with Gary and Lefty. You notice he didn't mention Mark Turgeon's name at all yesterday, but I like that part of it. And I think he said, look, we're going to have some fun. We're going to get up and down. He likes to adapt his offense to his two best players, I heard him say. So I think that fans should be excited about it. I mean, he wanted to come here. That is, for me, that is key. I mean, Brenda Fries said that he made the point of seeking her out at an Under Armour event a few years ago and basically telling her this is the job he wants. This is his dream job. So as a Maryland fan and as someone that follows the program, you have to like to hear that. The guy wants to be here. He recognizes the importance of recruiting in the DMV. He mentioned that multiple times yesterday. So look, I think it's a win for the school, and let's hope it translates on the court. But from what I heard yesterday, I'm all in.
Yeah, and by the way, recruiting more important than ever. It always was important, but now that we're really in this one and done era, now we're in a G League Ignite era where guys are going straight from high school. They're not even stopping by college. It puts the emphasis on recruiting. And again, I love the mention of Lefty Driesell, and I think with all due respect or fairness, he mentioned that the two winningest coaches at the school. Wasn't a slight to Mark Turgeon, but Lefty Driesell said that he was going to make Maryland the UCLA of the East in the early 70s. And if Moses Malone, who had committed to Maryland, had come to Maryland, he would have accomplished that, I believe. But that was back when there was a thing called the ABA, and Moses Malone turned pro right out of high school. As always, I get off the subject. Dave Preston, somehow you have 5 minutes in between every bracket racket you're writing and all these games you're covering. You must have noticed something about the coaching announcement.
Well, I noticed that they did not mention Bob Wade, nor did they mention Frank Fellows. So it wasn't just a turd slight. No, I think on my piece for WTOP.com that dropped earlier today, he hit all the notes in this press conference. It's tough to lose a press conference unless your name is Jim Zorn or you're saying Happy Thanksgiving. But he didn't say, hey, my family, we love those Maryland crab sticks, or hey, we're going to bring you guys home an ACC championship. He hit all the notes. He was thankful to his former employer. He was appreciative of Under Armour. And there is an invisible hand out there in college athletics with Under Armour and their relationship with different schools and different coaches. There is a back channel that doesn't exist with, say, Nike schools and Under Armour schools. There's a way to get things done and get deals done, whether you're an Adidas coach, whether you're an Under Armour coach, whether you're a Nike, or I don't even know if they still sell Etonic or was it ASIC or was it Pony? Remember Ruse that Walter Payton had with a little pocket? I don't think they sell those anymore. But I think there will be some challenges coming ahead for Kevin Willard. One, he's got to build a staff. From what I've heard, he's already putting his staff together. Two guys, can't name them right now, but he's already putting a staff together. Two, he's got to be able to go out and recruit. As you guys mentioned, under Mark Turgeon, the last 10 recruiting classes, according to 24/7 Sports, ranked roughly 5th to 6th in the Big Ten and 33rd overall nationally. But still, you would see a Hunter Dickinson go to Michigan. You would see a Luca Garza, Adam Array go to Iowa and become the Big Ten Player of the Year. So it's not just enough to get a good grade, but you have to be able to identify guys who might not be the best prospect coming out of high school, but guys that you can mold and you can coach up over the span of 4 years. I thought that Bino Ranson, former Maryland assistant, was great at getting big men to improve their game. If you look at Jalen Smith from year 1 to year 2, Bruno Fernando from year 1 to year 2, you saw an incredible improvement. Kevin Willard needs to get teachers and recruiters on this staff, and 30 needs to be able to sell the program. You look at attendance this past year, it was roughly over 13,000 in a 19,900 seat building. And trust me, I've covered enough schools where there's a lot of rounding up in different sections and things of that vein. So it reads 13, but some nights it felt like 9 or 10. And so you want to get that building rocking, because when Xfinity Center gets rocking for Gravis Vasquez, it reminds you of the good old days at Cole Fieldhouse when they sold out that building. You couldn't get a seat, and it was must attend basketball and entertainment in a very busy DC metro area where there's always something going on. And it's very easy to make an excuse not to attend a 9 o'clock tip off against Minnesota, late in February. But he's got to be able to sell the program to the fan base and to the state. And those are the challenges he has. Good luck to him.
Well, and that, it's interesting you mentioned that point, because the point about where the school is, this is a major area, and that's a selling point. No doubt to some kids, it also adds to the competition for Maryland, where it's not a college town. This is not a college town where no matter what the situation is, you own that town. This is not Penn State, where it doesn't matter. Everything's blue and white in Happy Valley. We have a beltway here, so you're not allowed to have a Happy Valley. And it also adds to the fact, the pressure of selling the program. That title was 2002. So we got a generation of kids now that what you just referenced, Coalfield House and those rivalries, they're going to have to Google about, Rob.
Yeah, and actually the 20-year anniversary of that title is next week. So that's preview, something we'll probably talk about on next week's episode. But today, look, this wasn't a bad hire. And I think we discussed this before. Maryland needed a home run, and this was kind of like a double. So it's not a bad hire. It's just not the kind of hire that's gonna move the needle.
All right, who would have been a home run though? Do you think? Do you have
the Fonz? Henry Winkler. You bring him in here, it's a home run for all the wrong reasons.
I'm not even 60, so I don't have anything to say to that. But I mean, we talked about Rick Pitino on here, and I know that comes with a lot of caveats and a lot of question marks and asterisks, but that's something that would have moved the needle, and that would have put Maryland on the national conscience again. So I'm not necessarily advocating for that hire, but I'm saying a hiring of that caliber would have moved the needle. I think a lot of people say Kevin Willard. Okay, look, I have mad respect for what he did at Seton Hall, but I'm going to use a football analogy for this. The late great Marty Schottenheimer was a guy that you could count on to take a team from 4-11, 5-11, 4-12, and take that team to the playoffs in pretty short order. But the knock on him was he couldn't win the big one. Once he got to the playoffs, he tended to go one and done. And so, there's a little of that with this Willard hire, in that he did turn around what was a dead Seton Hall program and started getting them to the tournament on a pretty regular basis. But once he got there, he never got past the second round. So again, with more resources at Maryland than he had at Seton Hall, can he do more? That is the big question. But I think that, for where this program is right now, they needed to get one of those guys, maybe, a Phil Jackson type guy who is known to do more with more, as opposed to guys who turn things around, who take programs from the dirt and get them to respectable.
I think real quick, look, it costs a lot of money these days. He's going to make an average of $4.2 million. Okay.
Oh yeah.
that has something to do with it. And he had 4 other offers, he said. But for me, like, I seriously believe that the fact that he mentioned multiple times, I'm not moving my family for anything other than this job. For me, if you come in saying that, my point is, you're not leaving Seton Hall because, oh, look, Maryland's giving me $4 million. I'm just going to go. I don't know anything about the school. I don't know anything about the history. Of course, the money has something to do with it. But for me, to hear him say that, I like to hear that.
And I think also why the proof will be in what he does and what he can accomplish. But what I will say about the ability for a coach, if it becomes the right person to turn things around, I think about Brenda Fries. I remember when she was hired. I remember seeing a billboard on New York Avenue and it was promoting Maryland women's basketball. And I was doing ACC women's basketball at the time. And I remember thinking, well, good luck to her, because there were so many Virginia, North Carolina, NC State. KL was still at NC. At that point, they were still in the ACC. They weren't even in the conversation in the ACC, much less where they are now. But she came in and she had the right passion, got the right players. And next thing you know, the crowds came, the results came. I still think there's going to be another title from Brenda Fries at Maryland. I know a lot of people may not follow men's soccer, but it was the same thing where Sasha Swarovski came in. And Maryland at the time was not even the best soccer team in the ACC. You had Bruce Arena and his Virginia team in North Carolina, and you go right down the list. And I remember thinking he came in saying, I'm going to win a national title at Maryland. I'm like, well, good luck. Not that I doubted him, but he just had such a pecking order in his own conference. Right. And the next thing you know, through will and determination, he got players here. He's had the most players drafted by Major League Soccer, and he got them in position. So I think George's point about the will and want to be here is a good point, because it is such a competitive world, college basketball, for a lot of reasons, including what I talked about, the fact that you're now up against kids who may not even want to come to college. They're going to turn pro, and because the NBA has offered that pathway with the G League Ignite.
And I think to address, Kevin Willard, where he came from, George mentioned it a little bit, to come from Seton Hall. Seton Hall, if you looked at the teams in the Big East, as far as how good of a job that is in the conference, it's probably 8th, 9th, or 10th, if that. It's the other school in and around New York City, and St. John's isn't even that good anymore. So it is a lower tier job. And the fact that he was able to get them to the tournament 5 times, yes, they didn't do much once they got there, but he also got them to the Big East semifinals. And if there was one, I think, and they played better as the season progressed. If you look at what bothered a lot of fans about during the Mark Turgeon regime, was the fact that they would have these flameouts at the Big Ten tournament. They lost to a Nebraska team that I think dressed up their mascot because they were put on scholarship guys.
Short people. Yep.
Under Turgeon, Maryland would have these February fades where they would lose to a Penn State or a Minnesota or a Nebraska or a Northwestern on the road, or even at home on senior day, they'd fall to a Penn State. And they just didn't seem, not only did they have trouble getting to the Sweet 16, they had trouble winning games in the conference. And Kevin Willard, when the reconfigured Big East, of the 8 Big East tournaments, he won 1. Another one was a pandemic where they would have been the #1 seed, and he got to 5 semifinals. So that proves that, okay, the team is playing better as the year progresses. The last couple of years under Turgeon, once they entered the Big Ten, I think only once do they have a better record the second half of conference play than they did the first half. So those are causes for confidence with Kevin Willard. The fact that he'll have more money, more facilities, he'll have something better to recruit to than Seton Hall. That has to be encouraging, but he's got to show progress in the first 2 or 3 years. And when I say 2 or 3, I probably mean 1 or 2. They can't go out and go, 5-15 in the Big Ten next year. He's got a 7-year deal, but they do have to show some progress, and they do have to show a little bit of the fight that he talked about. Because if they don't, his press conference where he talked about how they were going to work, there was going to be a swagger that they were going to bring back, that's going to come back to haunt them.
And if you can use the transfer portal, the transfer portal is huge. That's a different landscape in college basketball. And if he can work that, of course, you can get good quickly. And they talk about the NCAA tournament. I'm not making any excuses. You don't make excuses, but I'm gonna. Last week's 30-point loss to TCU, I'm not going to count that. Everybody knew he was gone. The players were. That thing was just over before it started. So I'm not
And
gonna.
by the way, don't knock mascots because Dave Preston, I saw him interviewing one last
Hey,
night.
Mascot madness, my friends. Hashtag, check it out.
All
You'll
right.
be
Did you
pleasantly
rub
surprised.
Testudo's nose, by the way? Did you rub Testudo's nose for the good luck?
No, I did not. No, he wouldn't let me. He said, I'm not a donor or an alum. And he says that your checks have not cleared yet, George.
Also,
So-
it's 2022. You got to get consent, y'all.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Hey, Spokane. Let's hope is it the gateway to greatness for the Maryland women's basketball team? My belief on this team is because they are so battle tested, and I see what you're pointing at. Yes, because they are so battle tested, because of the adversity they went through, the schedule they played. I think this is a Maryland team that can go all the way. Simply put, and that's my opinion. Rob?
Good night, everybody.
And that's that.
Hey, we're out.
No, I mean, I picked them to win it all. And here's the thing, they're healthy. And that was sort of the thing that they kept going back to when they spoke to the media before taking off for Spokane was, and Angel Reese had the best quote, a healthy Maryland is a scary Maryland. And that's the thing. I mean, you're going up against the 1 seed, you're going up against the defending champions, but the Cardinals should be the ones who are scared of Maryland on some level because when they saw them before, they weren't healthy. Of course, Brenda Freese lost her father early in the season. So it's like they've been dealing with adversity. They played a really tough schedule. So, I mean, this is a team that's battle tested. They come in healthy and they are, by all accounts, at least if you listen to the quotes, they are hungry. So, I mean, at a site that is neutral, I'd give Maryland the advantage in this because all of the pressure is on Stanford. So Maryland can come in loose, and it sounds like they are. They come in loose, they come in confident, and they're on top of their game right now.
Hey, Preston?
Well, I think Rob had it right there. Confident. I think it's better to be confident than to be loose too. So and both right now. I think they did meet Stanford during the regular season. They lost in a tournament in the Bahamas by 18, but they didn't have Diamond Miller. They didn't have Katie Benson for that game. I think Diamond Miller finally looks healthy. I had a chance to cover the Sunday game where they beat Florida Gulf Coast, and rather convincingly, she looks really good. And the rest of the pieces have come in place. Cause for concern, the teams that they beat to get to the Sweet 16, a 12 and a 13 seed. So they've won 2 games, but they haven't, I'd be more impressed if they had beaten, say, a Virginia Tech that was the 5th seed, but you got to beat the teams that are ahead of you. Also, another cause for concern might be depth. They only really play 7 players. If they get into foul trouble, and you never know how whistles are going to go in the NCAA tournament. There were a couple of plays against Florida Gulf Coast where you had these ridiculous whistles, and everyone on the press row looked at each other. It's like, what is that? Things can really turn on a dime if you get the wrong whistles, especially with a team that's as talented and as battle tested as Stanford. But I think this team is as good as any since 2015, the one that got to the Final Four most recently. For Coach Brenda Freese, they've got experience. They have a fantastic senior/graduate class in their 5th and 6th years, thanks to pandemic allowances. A player like Katie Benson, who led the nation in scoring, led the nation in 3-point shooting last winter, 50% from outside the arc, isn't doing that this year, but she's a fantastic glue player. She can help run the offense. She does a lot of things on both ends of the floor. And Ashley Owusu's a point guard like none other. She's built more like a small forward. So she's able to bowl into that lane and just, cause contact, get to the line and make plays there too. And Rob referred to Angel Reese. She's probably the most talented player on this team. As a sophomore, she was all Big Ten, 3rd team All-American. And she's technically a forward, but she has game that you don't often see for a 4 or a 5. So I'm looking forward to watching this team take on Stanford Friday night at 9:30. I'll be watching.
Okay, we only got about a minute left because I got to catch a flight. Real quick, we'll start with you, George, because you got to get into a sportscast. Did Washington jump the gun on getting a quarterback? Should they wait? We have Matt Ryan on the move, Deshaun Watson, not going to have criminal charges anyway. Did they jump?
I think so. I mean, I think they panicked. They didn't want to be left, with nobody standing at the altar, or however you want to put it, with no quarterback. I think they panicked a little bit. Could they have waited? Sure, but you don't know how it's going to unfold. They targeted him. You know, if you know Rivera went and talked to Joe Gibbs, they put everything on the board, and Carson's their guy. If they're convincing themselves of that, fine. You got to go with it and stick with it. It sounds like they're convinced of that, whether how real that is or not. But could they have waited? Sure, but they need to absolutely get a quarterback somehow, some way. Yes. So if you're going to go by that, they had an opportunity. They jumped it. And I will say, Frank Reich calling Rivera and saying that you're going to love this guy, you got the right guy. I like to hear that because it's obvious in Indy, it was not a Frank Reich situation that he wanted him gone. So it was an owner situation. So, you know, if he's telling him that and calling him, then, you know, we'll see what happens. But to bluntly answer your question, yes, I think they jumped it a little bit. But again, they had to get something.
But did he
Oh,
say
that's the
that
key.
before or after the trade, though? If he said it before the trade, he's trying to sell it. If he said it after,
No,
the
it was
trade-
after. But yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But-
Hey, you're going to love this guy. Take him. I swear,
Yeah.
he's great.
All right. But I think that's the key, that we're not coaching him. Ron Rivera's coaching him. So
Yeah.
if this is the guy, if he decided he has to go, Carson Wentz is his guy, that's all you need to know. Rob, your thoughts? Final word.
I think that they definitely did jump the gun on it, but at the same time, it is a little bit revisionist history because we didn't know that Matt Ryan was available until just recently. We didn't know that the Deshaun Watson thing was going to escalate to the extent that it did. And so in terms of the trade market, they didn't know that those options were going to be there. But I mean, it doesn't change the fact that they could have had at least 2 or 3 options that are better, both in terms of the cost and in terms of the quality of play, had they gone the free agent route and then drafted a guy.
All right. Well, there we go. It's that does it for this DC Sports Huddle, sponsored by MGM National Harbor. Time to change the game at BetMGM Sports. For George Wallace, Dave Preston, Rob Woodfork, I'm Dave Johnson. We'll see you next week.
Break.